Yes, welcome everybody. Good morning. Happy Thursday. Welcome to Spiritual Matters Thursdays. I'm your host, Dr. Monikah Ogando. And today we're talking about how do you deal with someone who rejects your beliefs? How do you deal when someone outright rejects, dismisses, minimizes, mocks, weaponizes your beliefs? How do you deal? And as you know, here at Spiritual Matters Thursdays, we don't typically have, shall we say, well-packaged advice. It's not even an advice-giving column, as it were. It's more like a playground for curiosity and investigations. So I'm going to be giving you some things to consider, darling, so that you may be better equipped to answer these questions for yourself. So should the situation ever arise, then at least you will be grounded enough in your own certainty to where you can entertain those kinds of questions, those kinds of notions, etc. So what do I mean by that? We are in a stage of political and spiritual development where lines are blurred. Yeah. Lines are blurred. There used to be a time when people thought that they could, particularly in the mainstream of culture, that they could compartmentalize their spiritual or religious beliefs from the rest of their lives. In fact, some would argue that the United States was founded on that separation of church and state, of spirituality and secular life, etc. And so when somebody rejects your religious beliefs, or when you do things in the secular sphere, politically, economically, family-wise, socially, etc., with religious reasons, then the lines can become a little bit blurred. So let me first define what we're talking about here. As many of you know, I have a PhD in comparative religions. And so for me, this nuance is very present. And that is that religion is the study of human beings' relationship to the divine. It is not the study of the divine. Okay? Let's get that squared away first. Because a lot of times what I see people doing or conflating is that when they have a problem with a particular religion, they're actually speaking about a problem that they have with the ways that people have used religion and used God as an excuse for their political, economic, social gain. And then they ascribe it to God. So let's create that distinction first. And then the second thing is that because it is the study of the relationship that human beings have to the divine, then it is informed by many things that inform any relationship, right? There used to be a time, let's take your relationship to your parents or cultural relationship to parents, right? There was a generation, and you may have a culture like this, where it was unheard of that when your parents told you to do something that you challenged them. That was considered disrespect. It's considered disobedience. It's considered a blatant, just disregard for social order. And you were liable to get popped in the mouth in public because where you brought it. Whereas today, in the late 2020s, it is very common to see a child telling their mother in the middle of the grocery store, no, I'm not going to do that. And furthermore, thank you for even suggesting it. And people are just kind of like, you're supposed to take it. And there used to be a generation was like, not only do you not say that or even think it or dream it, when you wake up, you better apologize, but you most certainly do not do it in public, right? And so because relationship dynamics change, we tend to make certain considerations for those things. Cultures change, generations have changed, access to technology. access to economies, access to social structure, et cetera, et cetera. Those things have changed. So, of course, our interpersonal relationships change. But we don't necessarily give that same level of grace, at least not in common discourse, to the ways in which people's relationship with God changes, or even their relationship to corporate worship, right? Like the culture of their church or their spiritual community and so forth. So, what do we do when somebody rejects your spiritual/religious beliefs? I think one place to look is, what do you do when somebody rejects or challenges your any relationship, your relationship with your spouse, your relationship with your children or how you raise them, your relationship to money, your relationship to your friends, et cetera, et cetera. Some of us get really defensive. And we're like, you have no right, and you don't know me that well, and you don't know them, and you're missing some context, and I don't like that. Therefore, you have no standing to opine here. All right. And then some of us are like, thank you for sharing. I will take that under advisement, and you can keep it moving because you're too polite to say what you really want to say. Right? And so, yeah, Stan says, I get possessive. Yes. And, I have that same kind of energy with the people that I love. I'm like, okay, can tell Sorrel to go to hell, but don't you dare. Right? You can fight with Giovanni, but don't you dare. And so some of us have that same feeling that it's like, I can have a crisis of faith. I can question and say, what is you talking about? But don't you dare challenge God. You know what I mean? And I'm going to invite you to check in with that any kind of opinion that comes your way. On some level, by right of consciousness, you have invited it. Your project, your homework, as it were, is like the Oracle says to Neo in the Matrix, you've already made the choice. The question now is why you made it. I'm not asking you to make a different choice. I'm asking you to investigate why you've made the choice you've made. Right. And so that feedback comes to you to kind of audit yourself, right? One of our tenets here is to audit your assumptions. So when somebody shows up, and this is just a general way of being for me, and I'm inviting you to do the same. When someone shows up in your midst, challenging any of your beliefs, any of your ways of being, anything, check in with yourself about the part of you that self-doubts, that challenges yourself, that thinks you don't have it all the way together. Because the person in front of you is really just an extension or a projection of your own mind. There's no out there. Okay, we can talk about divine law in that sense. But when you do that, when you invite it in, like, you're giving me something to think about, all of a sudden the charge of it, the weight of it, is neutralized. Yeah, because now it's a curiosity and not something to have to get defensive about. Because let's be honest, even somebody that you have known for years, let's say you have a 30, 40, even 50-year relationship with anybody. The only close to 50-year relationship that I have in my life is that with my mother. Everything else is less than that, right? But even those relationships, like, I don't know everything there is to know about this lady, and she birthed me. I don't know everything that there is to know about who she's become or who she was before me, or, her private thoughts that she never shared because she was too busy raising children, or she was too busy being a wife to my father. And do you know what I mean? Like, even in the ones that have the longest tenure in terms of time or the deepest intimacy in terms of connection, even then you don't know everything. Even then you don't have access to everything. So why not invite the challenge? Why not invite the quote unquote rejection? Because at the risk of sounding vulgar, I heard somebody say once, I'm gonna say it demurely. I heard somebody say once, what you eat doesn't make me poop. And so if you're rejected, It doesn't necessarily have anything to do with my relationship to the divine. Like, okay, thanks for sharing. But where it might be useful could be, well, where does that person's rejection, minimization, mocking or whatever of my spiritual beliefs, where does that match my own self-doubt? Where does that match my quote unquote lack of faith? Where does that match my irreverence? Where does that match, and especially where I don't want to admit it, especially where I haven't fully integrated it, especially where I haven't fully made peace with it, that I'm still grappling with it, right? And so part of the reason why we sometimes get defensive about certain things, whether it's somebody showing up, mocking or minimizing or whatever, part of the reason why we get defensive about those things is because they're pointing to something that I already think, know, or believe that I haven't fully accepted yet. And because I haven't accepted it, when you point it out, I'm going to now make it that it's your problem, or that you're the issue, or that you didn't present it right, or that you were too belligerent, or that you were too mocking, or blah, 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 so that I can continue to kind of set myself apart from this doubt or this questions or this irreverence that I haven't fully integrated into my consciousness yet. But if I have fully integrated, or at least I'm working on it and I'm aware of it, then when you show up irreverent, I can connect with my own irreverence. And I could just kick the ball down the road. Like, let's both of us joke about this. All right. And again, it takes the charge off of it. It neutralizes whatever's coming at you because you've begun to integrate it into your consciousness. You've begun to look at it without any kind of defense. So, where this can get kind of tricky is when it translates from an individual experience to a collective policy. For example, there are organizations where at the beginning of every event, you're supposed to stand and do a prayer or salute the flag or say some kind of, devotion or something like that. And if you don't agree with it and if you don't comply with that particular practice, you stand to be at least minimally some level of pariah or some level of, counter-revolutionary or whatever the case may be. You may at the very least raise some eyebrows. I'll give you a perfect example. I used to be part of Toastmasters for a few years. And at Toastmasters, when you begin a meeting, you stand up, face the flag, and say the Pledge of Allegiance. I do not pledge allegiance to anything, let alone a country that has a history of betraying their citizens. So I don't stand and I don't speak the Pledge of Allegiance. And it wasn't a big deal until somebody mentioned that. But one thing, and this is as big of a deal as it got, like it maybe doesn't even register as a big deal to you, but as a big a deal as it got was that somebody noticed that I didn't stand and I didn't speak the Pledge of Allegiance, but I just, I continued, I didn't make a big deal of it. After the meeting, they came to me and they're like, I wonder why you did that. And I explained my reason. I explained my history of my lived experience of, it doesn't align with my beliefs, it doesn't align with my values. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then that was that. But sometimes we tend to comply with social structures because we don't want to raise eyebrows, because we don't want to have a conversation, because you don't want somebody in your face talking about what you didn't do, why you didn't do it that way, et cetera, et cetera. And so I just want you to notice your relationship with compliance, your relationship with, go along to get along. And then in the quiet of your own mind, in the quiet of your own heart, I want you to sit with what I actually know, what I actually believe, and am I willing to have a public discourse about that? Because one of your personal rules could be, I do not discuss or debate my beliefs with anyone, political, religious, or otherwise. That could be one of your rules, But when you're clear about what your rules are, when you're clear about your protocols, about how you navigate the world and relationships, and you state them just like that, charge neutral, most people are typically willing to respect that. So I'm very curious. I want to open it up to you guys. I'm very curious. Have you ever had any of your beliefs, specifically spiritual or religious beliefs, challenged? And if so, what did you do about it? And what did it bring up for you? If you haven't had your religious or spiritual beliefs challenged, privately or publicly, what do you imagine you would do if they were? I would love to have that conversation. Giovanni, por favor, come into my office.
Yeah, thank you. Great inquiry, great discussion for me, to me. I many years ago I was listening to I don't know if you know this guys, Christopher Hitchens and
Yes.
Sam Harris
Yes.
and the biology guy, I forgot his name. And they were a strong force against religion. And I bump into and all religions as a force of good in the world. And I bump into by accident one of those conversations. And at first I thought, how dare they do that? I mean, it's like at the moment I felt so uh, intimidated by their courage to talk about things that I thought I would go to hell for.
Mm,
And as I was listening to their arguments and the possibility of their contribution in their arguments, and I would block some offensive remarks that sometimes they would say for the opportunity of the conversation. But then I started hearing a real contribution to me to learn to think differently.
mhm,
And I started disabusing myself from the inherited guilt and shame of questioning things. For me, I have to say they became um, a real contribution to my life, and my intellect uh, grew. My ability to debate grew. My ability to be with someone from any walk of life expanded. My
mhm.
ability to listen for where people are really coming from, it also expanded. So I think that what I want to say is I truly grew from letting go many emotions around questioning.
Yeah.
And and yeah, so I wanted to add that to the conversation.
Awesome. Thank you for saying that. And I can relate, I can empathize. At first it comes across blasphemous. It comes across like, are we even allowed to do that? Like, move out of the way, thunder's coming. But then to your point, yeah, it does expand our ability to not only think critically about certain things, but then also just become curious and explore. Um, yeah. So thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Good stuff. All right, Sorrel,
Good,
come
good.
on over.
Now, Dr. Monica, I didn't expect this conversation to bring me here, but I find myself mourning a religion that I never got to experience.
Tell me more.
So I'm from Haiti,
Mhm.
and the people of Haiti uh, have a specific religion. And as I was growing up, the way I think my beliefs were assaulted, like the beliefs I didn't have that I couldn't inherit were assaulted. There were missionaries in Haiti, and they converted my grandmother. And my
Mhm.
grandmother went on a rampage. Like her mission in life became to convert everyone who came in within 10 million miles of her to a new religion for her.
Yeah.
which was Christianity and
Yeah.
being a Protestant, being a Pentecostal. And so I'm sitting here looking for how my beliefs have been assaulted or questioned. And I'm mourning and saddened by what I'm seeing now is an assault on an entire people. Uh, like on the beliefs of an entire country.
Mhm.
What you believe is whatever it is, here's a better religion for you.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm confronted by. And so I'm exploring that.
Mm.
And I think your question was, well, what do I do when my beliefs are questioned or assaulted?
Yeah.
Uh, Inside of all that soup, I'm now seeing that I was left with a belief that it's not like it can't be assaulted, but I don't mind if it's assaulted because it wasn't mine anyway. So that's where I am.
Thank you for saying that, Sorrel. I really appreciate you bringing in this piece of it, um, because because our relationship to the divine does not happen in a vacuum. Our relationship to the divine is informed by and supported by or challenged by um, our relationship to race, our relationship to culture, our relationship to indigeneity. And in as much as in order for colonialism and racism and capitalism and patriarchy and all these isms to survive, it had to put its boot on the neck of other things, such as the traditions that were brought over by kidnapped enslaved Africans into the Caribbean islands. And so there's a vested political interest in minimizing and rejecting and sometimes by penalty of death the intuition of the feminine or the agricultural basis of certain indigenous religions. And so, yeah, there's a grief that happens with the connection that never was because we know it's part of our history, but we never actually had full access to it, let alone practice it or become proficient in it. But then also the ways in which we notice, particularly our elders, kind of falling for the okey doke is some of what I hear and what you're sharing.
Mm-hmm.
And then how that trickles down to the next generations and so forth. So thank you for bringing that to our awareness in this discussion. And I share in your grief. There's so much that has been lost to history because somebody had an agenda. And
Yeah,
I think that the intellectual honesty and the critical thinking rigor requires that we open up the discussion about all of it so that we can make a decision for ourselves about where we stand on those things. So again, thank you.
yeah. Dr. Monica, I also now find an opportunity for me to forgive myself.
Mm,
I'm forgiving myself for having been ashamed of the belief I never could embrace. I am forgiving myself for being my grandmother, uh, actively not converting, but condemning people who were not converted by my grandmother. So I'm making peace with that right now.
yeah,
I am complete.
thank you for that. Thank you. Yes, yes, good stuff. I think I saw Rashida's hand on. Rashida, did you have something?
Grand, Grand Rising,
Huh?
my dear sister, impressed. I am so so thrilled with you and this topic this morning, and just took me back. Yesterday was my eldest birthday, and I called her to wish her happy birthday. And she was picking my brains and the time she was born and what day she born and stuff like that. But afterwards, she said, "Mom, you still gonna come to California because she live out in the Bay Area." I said, "Yes, I'm coming to California for my granddad's birthday, our birthday and after our graduation." So we started to speak, and she says to me, she says, "Mom, what you doing?" I say, I am today. I'm on my dry fast," and she says, "Ma, I gotta commend you. Thank you so much for being that steward and to see that you are so devoted and so committed to your 40 days every year." And you know what? I wanted to make a point. He says to me, he says, "I want to make a point with you since you say you bring up this point of fasting." He said, "You know what? I respect you, farmer. Even as you was fasting, you would still cook and you would still feed us and you would still, and you starve yourself." I said, "I wasn't starving myself with that. I was going through my journey." She said, "Beautiful journey, but I could never." And the thing is that she said, "You never force it on us. You will wake up, you make breakfast, you put us on the school bus, and you would just go on with your life." She says, "Thank you. Thank you so much for teaching us how to fast, but not on your term, but on our term." And this is one of the things that this morning when you started the conversation, I said, "Wow, indeed, people don't come around me when I'm fasting." But it's funny, last weekend I have a friend of mine came over and he said, "Oh no, I make a mistake. I forget that he was fasting." I said, "No problem. I'm gonna cook you breakfast." And he said, "You sure?" I said, "Yes." I said, "How you do it?" But it's just the consciousness and the awareness that we go through, and this is not a religion stuff that I go through. I go through this for my health, for my spirituality, not somebody else's. I go through this with the growth, have moving on a higher level of
Mhm,
spirituality, of consciousness, and
mhm.
purpose. I'm telling you, I have lost like 5 pounds. And everybody say, "What you gonna do with those 5 pounds?" I say, "You want it? I can give it to you." But
Yeah.
this is what when you start with the religion part and the consciousness of the direction that you take for religion, sometimes it's not even so much religion, but what you take out of it and what you put into it is what you're going to get out of it. But I'm saying this topic is for me, like they said, the last week of my fast, and you came up with this. Thank you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate the topic. And it's for me, it's right into my, like I said, right into my setting. Thank you so much, my sister.
You're very welcome. Thank you so much for that contribution. And thank you all for being here. I'm going to give you a little bit of homework because that's what we do. That's what we do here at Thursday Spiritual Matters. Um, pop open your journal or your notes app on your phone or something and write down for yourself, just like how Sorrel kind of demonstrated for us, the places where you now notice or have been present to the ways in which you have been challenged or maybe missed an opportunity to stand up for or to investigate your beliefs. And like Giovanni also presents for us, maybe you saw somebody else do it and you were confronted with your own biases. Like, is this even legal? Is this even right? Am I going to get punished by the divine for even questioning? So take some time to just write this down for yourself or speak it if you're more of an auditory person to voice it. To just be present to these are the ways in which I've been challenged or have been unwilling to be challenged or the missed opportunities to be able to think critically and to investigate certain things. And then come out a little bit. Where else do you do that? Do you do that about money? Do you do that about relationships, about the opposite sex? Do you do that about health or fitness or beauty, or what other areas of your life do you hold that position? Because when you start to see it in one area, you'll begin to see it in others, and then you can take awareness choice action. I was going to say corrective action, but there's nothing to correct, there's nothing to fix. But when you have an awareness, you can choose to make a different choice or to stand by the choice that you're making. Choice comes from awareness. And so I invite you all to take that on as your homework for Thursday, for this week, or the weekend. And as always, thank you for being here. Remember to love generously, to laugh a lot, eat more plant-based, stress less, exercise more. Remember that twerking is a Kundalini raising spiritual exercise. Don't be afraid of it. I know you can twerk.
More of that.
Work it out. Drink your water, sleep your 7 to 9 hours, and of course, audit your assumptions. Check yourself before you wreck yourself. We love you. See you next time.
Thank you. Thanks for this platform. It's beautiful.
Thank you. Bye.